For centuries, the ancient Sangam landscape of South India was defined by a steady rhythm of power. The Chera, Chola, and Pandya dynasties held firm control, ruling over a deeply structured agrarian society. Around the year 300 CE, this deeply established societal order was abruptly and violently overturned by a massive, widespread rebellion. The instigators were the Kalabhras, a mysterious faction that seized control of the Tamil country and maintained their grip for 3 full centuries. This sudden disruption left a 300-year hole in the historical record, a period that would leave scholars struggling to reconstruct the timeline for generations. Later historians and the dynasties that eventually reclaimed power officially dismissed this entire 3-century span as a destructive, dark age. Subsequent royal charters portrayed the Kalabhras as ruthless usurpers who plunged society into chaos and uprooted the ancient, righteous lineages. Modern academic investigations look past this propaganda to identify who the Kalabhras actually were, with theories ranging from the Kalabhra tribes of the Venkatam region to the Muttariyars. The early Vatteluttu script, carved deeply into these stone surfaces, provides the physical record of their administrative presence during the era. This lack of historical clarity stems from a deliberate act of erasure by the empires that followed, who sought to purge the Kalabhras from the collective memory. Looking past the royal propaganda, the Kalabhra era appears as a period of intense cultural and philosophical evolution. They moved away from Vedic traditions, providing state patronage to heterodox religions, specifically Buddhism and Jainism. This shift fueled the expansion of monastic networks across South India, intentionally bypassing traditional temple hierarchies. This intellectual climate triggered a surge in classical Tamil literature, with scholars using palm leaf manuscripts to record new philosophical and moral debates. The Kalabhras fostered a thriving alternative culture that posed a direct threat to the traditional Vedic hierarchy. If literature and culture were flourishing, what drove the intense hatred that later dynasties felt toward the Kalabhra regime? The conflict was primarily economic. The Kalabhras aggressively canceled Brahmadeya rights, ending centuries of tax-free land grants previously reserved for the Brahmin elite. This policy stripped wealth from traditional elites and centralized agricultural revenue directly under the control of the Kalabhra state. Intricate copperplate grants serve as primary physical proof for historians, tracking bitter land disputes. By decoding dense inscriptions, scholars can trace shifting ownership and legal status of villages as they were moved in and out of the state's tax net. The Kalabhras reorganized the region's financial foundations, dismantling the land ownership privileges that had sustained the old order for centuries. This total reorganization of power eventually forced historically bitter enemies to unite for their own survival. A coordinated military campaign saw Pandyan king Kadungan striking from the south and Pallava king Simhavishnu moving from the north. This relief carving captures the intensity of the warfare required to finally break the 300-year Kalabhra hold over the Tamil country. The returning kings abandoned the looser structures of the earlier Sangam Age, choosing instead to build heavily fortified, centralized states to ensure their control was never challenged again. Upon reclaiming power around 600 CE, the Pallavas and Pandyas launched a systemic Vedic revival to erase the Jain and Buddhist legacy. They used massive volumes of new Sanskrit copperplate charters to permanently codify land laws and lock in their authority. Within these charters, rulers included elaborate genealogies that traced their bloodlines directly to the gods, making their right to rule a matter of divine law. They strategically placed loyal Brahmin settlements, or Brahmadeyams, along the borders of their kingdoms to act as both a cultural and physical defense line. They asserted this new era through monumental architecture, using stone bull statues and massive towers as permanent, indestructible symbols of their divine right to rule. The Kalabhra period was the essential crucible of South Indian history, dismantling the systems of antiquity and forcing the creation of the majestic medieval empires that followed.